Before we start the show, I want to let you all know the views, opinions, beliefs, and statements expressed are not necessarily those of KBeach Radio and Otaku Hourly. They are, in fact, of the host, guest, and/or caller. KBeach Radio and Otaku Hourly hold no responsibility for the validity and/or accuracy of information. Now, with that out of the way, here we go. Proud to be broadcasting from Cal State University, Long Beach. We are kbeach.org and KBeach FM, 88.1 FM, KKJZ, HD3, Long Beach, Los Angeles. Joining you for coffee at 10 o'clock. This is Otaku Hourly, your backdoor anime hangout.
Jonathan Joestar Beltran. And here with me today in the studio is my crew member,
Jon No Jons on the mic, yo.
Yeah. And our esteemed guests today are from the video game company / localizers of Idea Factory. So please introduce yourselves.
I'm David Alonso. I'm the PR marketing guy.
Yeah.
My name's Alex Vise. I am a localization editor.
Ari Advincula, also PR and marketing.
My name is Rain Gregorio, and I'm also an editor.
Nice. So we're here to talk about localization and whatnot. Just see what the actual process is of getting your Japanese video games into the States. So the main two that we're actually going to go into are Alex and Rain in their actual careers as editors and writers for Idea Factory International. So I want to start off with you, Alex. How'd you get into Idea Factory International?
Man, that's a long story.
Oh, I'm up for stories. Let's go.
Well, okay, so I was, once upon a time, as they say, in between jobs, and I was looking for part-time work, and I found actually via BeachLink.
Oh, really?
A job posting for a QA tester, and I applied. And I went in and got an interview. I was super psyched because, I was sending out a ton of resumes all the time and didn't get anything back. That was one of the first ones I got back. And I went in, had the interview, pretty psyched, didn't get the job.
Oh,
I got the email back oh, we already found enough people. I'm sorry. You're still really cool though. And I was like, okay, whatever. three or 4 days later, I get a follow-up email. Hey, just kidding. One of our guys' schedules didn't really work out. Do you still want to do it? And out of pride, I almost wanted to be no. But I was oh man, well, my wallet's kind of empty right now, so I probably should just say yeah.
Yeah.
So I did. And then, that was October 2015. About a year later, I was working on Mega Dimension Neptunia V2 for PS4 as my first title editing there. I had just, I was already, I went through school, I went through college already. By that time, I had already graduated from here with a degree in creative writing. So I was qualified already, and they took a test with them, a editing test and a couple other things, but they gave me the offer and I did it. So that's kind of how I ended up editing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, David, I want to know, what do you feel when hearing that right now? It's just it's a stroke of pride.
He did good work.
Did his job well.
Yeah.
I wasn't in charge of the whole hiring process, but yeah. I got to see him as a tester, and then he blossomed into this beautiful editor. And
We're very glad to have him.
We're glad.
The bud grew. Yay. Now, how about you, Rain?
I actually was in the creative writing program as well with Alex. And so after school, I had, done a few jobs here and there, but nothing really stuck. I didn't really find anything I was super passionate about. And I was also in between jobs. And then off chance, Alex hit me up and said, hey, we are actually hiring testers right now. And I kind of just, I beamed. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And so I applied. I was in a full suit and everything. I slicked my hair back. It was probably the nicest I've ever looked.
It was more slick than I've ever seen it in my life.
Yeah.
Like, excessively slick.
It's like, dang, wow. He's got that swagger on.
I was actually trying to hide my cowlick.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I was a tester for a couple months. I was really enjoying it, and then it just so happened that another title needed a proofreader, which was Make You, which was a dungeon crawler, which was going to come out in a year or so. And I ended up being able to have that opportunity. I tested with them and was able to proofread that title. And then eventually, kind of the doors opened up, and I was able to become a full editor. And they gave me Hakuoki Kyoto Winds, which was a really huge opportunity for me. So,
dang,
yeah, it was really cool.
Now, I actually want to go into the whole question of what does a day in the life look as an editor? So we'll start off with you, Rain.
Oh man, lots of coffee. I would say definitely just start. You wake up and drink lots of coffee. But honestly, we work pretty closely with our translators. We're always in conversation with them. And so my thing first is I always love to read the passages, definitely get a feel for all of the context and reading, what's going on. And then from there, it's just kind of chipping away, bit by bit at all of the text and everything, and looking at how it can improve and how to best interpret all of the narratives.
Wow. So it's basically storytelling, translation, and coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang.
Yeah.
Your Starbucks rewards card must be loaded.
It's pretty bad.
I don't know. It's getting to where you are right now, so that's good. That's good. And you hit your cowlick, so that's fine.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. And then how about you, Alex? What's a day in the life look like for you?
It's very much the same thing. Like Rain said, we're in constant communication with our translators throughout the day. They literally sit mine sits right behind me. So whenever I have a question like, hey, what does this mean? Because I'll have her translation, just turn around and tap her on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Explain this to me. I want to do a good job editing it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of rewriting, a lot of just sitting with the text and kind of rereading it. I think something that Rain and I kind of bring to the table, because we went through the creative writing program here and we're part of the poetry stuff here. My focus was in poetry. I think yours was too, right?
Definitely.
There's just a lot of allegiance to the sound of a line and the way that a line reads. And I feel a lot of the editing for me, a lot of my focus is paying attention to the musicality of a phrase and how it's read. If I'm playing this game for the first time and I'm reading this, is this going to read smoothly? Is this going to read well? Is it going to be charming? There's a lot that I want to make sure that I capture, and I feel a lot of intention is spent just in those moments of frustration, backspace and just retyping everything. It's weird. I think that the juggle, the balance for me is not spending so much time editing and rewriting, because we have a deadline. We have to make sure a game comes out on time. These games have release dates and all that. So I don't know, I think that's always a tricky part, because me, I like writing a lot, and I always want to make sure it's going to be perfect or try. I think I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, which can be bad with this sort of thing, because I just ended up spending too much time on a line or something.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's, I don't know, rewriting. Frustration.
Yeah, you mentioned something about being the perfectionist. So how do you actually manage, handle, or probably overcome that kind of perfectionist attitude, knowing that a deadline is coming in?
You get slapped on the wrist by a manager telling you need to finish it, finish the game already. You're behind.
Oh my god. It's it doesn't read fluid.
I think we just have to kind of learn to let some stuff go sometimes, and just a line might not read the way that I really want it to, but it's I'm maybe 85% there, but it's there's no more time. It needs to go. I need to move on to the next scene already and keep going.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And going into just your creative writing backgrounds, I want to go more into how did poetry actually help you guys out in the localization process? Because that's an interesting point I found.
Oh man. Well, there's so many opportunities, especially in an Otoma game, to kind of explore lots of different syntax and different words that, like Alex said, really fit with the music of the phrase. And I think that Japanese in particular really translates well to that kind of opportunity, because when you're reading all of this stuff, there's so much beauty in the narrative and in the story, and I think that we would be doing a disservice to the story by not giving it that kind of treatment.
Yeah. And then how about you, Alex?
I feel the same way. Just we've been given these tools, or at least the education, I think, here to be able to provide an appropriate amount of beauty to, you know, a scene of dialogue or something. And I think a lot of times for me, I mean, Rain hasn't done this yet, but like we do voice over stuff with a lot of our titles, and I feel like that is where a lot of that like sticks out for me. Like that's where a lot of it shines for me, because like, I mean, these actors have to like read these phrases, and like they really need to sound pretty. Like I want them to, I mean, even if it's like an angry scene or something, like, I want it to like, I want that to like that poetry to like really stand out, and I feel like that's super important. So I mean, I think just a lot of what we've learned here has kind of informed our decisions and, you know, rewriting these phrases or whatever.
Yeah, and one thing that I actually read from the Japan Times was that for localizers, they really have to be like really get themselves sucked into the narratives to really understand about it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so Rain, knowing that Hakuoki Kyoto Wins is actually like, it's an Otome game, like a dating sim.
Yeah.
Like, are Otome games like your thing now after like delving into that?
You know what's really funny is the first thing, you know, when I had learned that Hakuoki was coming down, was I did my research, and I really found, you know, a really warm community to embrace. And the thing that I kind of love about Hakuoki, and I guess Otome games in general, is that the players in particular are so passionate about that. And so it was really easy for me to sort of buy into the lore of who these characters were and what their intentions were, and kind of get to the root of the story, which I think is really important when you're approaching, you know, such a large one, especially with all of the different ways that the narrative sort of breaks out. So as far as Otome games being my game, it was definitely something that I kind of learned about as I was playing Hakuoki. But there's just so much to mine from there. You know, I mean, you can get attached to any particular character. I have my favorites for sure. Okay. So, and yeah, you just get really attached to them, and I think that that's a really cool thing that is sort of underrepresented in the West. You know, there aren't a lot of games like that where you can build a relationship with someone and sort of buy into that story, and not just be a passenger to the story, but really be a participant.
Yeah, and in addition, with Kyoto Wins especially, according to your website, I read that the feature, like few of the features include 12 handsome bachelors, 80 hours of romance with 30 different endings, and an encyclopedia. So I want to ask you, how do you keep your sanity localizing all of this?
Like I said, lots of coffee. But, you know, I mean, when you're reading it doesn't seem as daunting, because it really is just like, you really do get invested with a lot of these characters, and they have so many funny lines, and just kind of exploring the nuances of their conversation, especially, you know, these are 19th century Japanese men, you know, how would they speak? And so I'm a really huge... like I get really obsessed with like going and researching different things, especially with like Japanese history and different Japanese decorum. My girlfriend actually gave me like a book on really traditional tea ceremonies and stuff. Wow. So for me, it's just like it's paradise. I really love it.
Dang,
yeah.
You're just exploring more worlds within worlds.
Exactly. Yeah, and it really just enriches, you know, the experience of the game, and I really hope that people, when they play it, get that experience too. But yeah, I just have a lot of fun being able to learn a lot more about that time period through the game.
Got you. Have you ever seen yourself being like more elegantly prose with your favorite character compared to the other one?
I plead the fifth.
Smart move. Yeah. Smart move. After all, we have two PR people. It's just like, I don't want to get you fired.
Yeah. No, I definitely, no, every single guy has his moments, and every single route is definitely beautiful in its own way, but there are certain characters that definitely captivate me in different ways.
So. Nice. We'll get into Alex and his involvement with the Hyper Dimension Neptunia series right after the break.
If you're enjoying Otaku Hourly, please make sure to check out our merchandise, such as the Dio Branto figure, interchangeable with Jonathan Joestar's body. And of course, we also have the Nico Yazawa trash can.
This is Bobo. Come on, kid. You're listening to Otaku Hourly.
I'm your show host, Jonathan Joestar Beltran, and here with me today in the studio is my crew,
Jon No Jons,
and our esteemed guests,
David.
Alex.
Ari.
Rain.
Yes, they're all from Idea Factory International, the localization process. So yay! And on the camera we have Marvin, Marth over here over at Facebook Live. Yeah, Eyes of Avocado. That is your new JoJo name.
Dang.
I know.
It's like that.
Yeah, it is. Jonathan Joestar here. I just need the muscles now. And a rival. So, once again, we're talking about the localization process of things. And we are actually going to be talking with Alex and his involvement with the Neptunia series. And what was it like to actually handle a flagship series of Idea Factory?
Daunting. I mean, even more so once I kind of discovered the online community that's out there.
Explain more about that. I want to remember this is PG. No curse words.
Like it's just interesting. Just the online forums. Like, well, on Reddit, there's like r/game industry, and I kind of like peek in there kind of a lot to see what's going on. And then also there's NepGen, the Neptunia General on 4chan. And I chime in there a whole lot, and these guys, they're pretty cool, but they're very opinionated. Right. And I feel like, okay, like I'm coming into this series now, and like I want to make sure like I do it justice. Like there's a lot of expectation. Because my first title was the first PS4 one, so it was just like, oh man, like, geez, I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah. Like, wait, was this your first title to work with? Oh my gosh! Yeah. Wow.
First title ever. was the first PS4 Neptunia title, so it was a doozy, man. I don't know. It was just kind of crazy thinking about it now. It's already giving me like PTSD.
Now, did you have something to say?
Oh, I just had a quick question for like everyone, and anyone can just chime in on this. So, like with Hyper Dimension Neptunia, since it's like kind of based off of like a parody of the game industry.
Yeah.
So what was your approach when it comes to localizing something like this without like trying to like, because I know like there's a lot of copyright involved too. Like what was your approach to it, and how you guys can market Hyper Dimension Neptunia?
Well, a lot of it was like already, in the Japanese, like a parody. So it was really just a matter of I mean, sometimes just like a one-to-one translation of whatever the parody was in the Japanese one. So it really wasn't that difficult, because they were already kind of like poking fun at all the names of everything. I mean, like you have like the 4 main nations. Louis, it's like a stand-in for like the Nintendo like Wii. Or whatever. Last Station is like PlayStation.
Right.
Main box is Xbox or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I guess they kind of already, it was like built in to the translation pretty much. So it wasn't too difficult to do.
It's like, yay, no copyrights. Thank you guys. Now, if like for good news, since this was your first project, Operation Rainfall, video game journalism company, they declared Mega Dimension Neptunia V2 as their game of the year. What do you think? Was it worth the blood, sweat, and tears, and coffee?
Hell yeah, because I was crying over that game for so long. I mean, it was just like, it was, like I said, just daunting. It was by now, I feel like I'm on like my 5th or 6th title now, just like other games that we've done. And so it's easier. The process is for sure easier for me now, and I'm so glad I got like really good reception too, because I was just making sure, like, I mean, because like with the previous titles, just I don't know, I guess maybe they were, from the perspective of the community, maybe more liberties taken with some of the translation editing choices that were made, like in the games leading up to V2, and then with V2, I think we just kind of tried to go back to square one and just make sure that we're getting a more concise or what's the word, a true translation, I guess, rather than sticking more stuff in it than needed. So anyways, I just feel like I was really intent, like really paying attention. Like I said, I was like pretty scared of like the reception for this. So I was like super stoked when all that news came out.
Wow. Dang, man. Now
it's not that serious.
Yeah. It's just like, oh my gosh, it turned to a 180. It's like, once again, like I asked Rain over here, how'd you keep your sanity?
Yeah, a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
A lot of beer runs after work. That was cool. Extracurriculars, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like, okay, good, healthy, and meetups. Great. Now, I want to go into localization in the general sense. So give us an idea, like, what are the common myths of localization? Like, what are some things that you hear people say, like, oh, it's possibly like this?
That's a great question. Common myths. You know, it's tough to say because I think a lot of times people, especially with these kinds of titles, and especially because they come out, you know, in Japan first, they have their preconceptions about how these characters should be, and I think that that's a large part of it too. Is that the fandom often determines how they want the tone of the game to go, especially like he said in the lead up to these games. So it's definitely keeping in mind, you know, what the fans would think, and then being in line with what the community, their relation to the game would be. But it's obviously the most important thing is keeping honest to the text and working with your translator to create like an honest interpretation of how this would be, especially for a Western audience. You know what I mean? The West is completely different than Japan. And so it's just being able to be disciplined and knowing that there are limits to what you can localize and what you can say.
Which is a lot more difficult than just having someone spew out a translation, like, you know, over the course of a week or something. You know, a lot of time is spent, you know, just examining these nuances in the text, and I feel like maybe some people don't always consider that when they think, oh, they didn't translate it correctly. You know, there's just so much that goes into that process, which is, you know, a lot of times like a lot of compromises. Even, you know, for me, just thinking like, okay, like, should I say this or not? Like, how is this going to be received by the fandom versus what's actually said in the game? And, you know, like, just there's expectations from the community for the title, and I mean, it's sometimes I guess maybe difficult to balance, you know, that, you know, just because there's sometimes I want to give the fans like what they probably want, but maybe it's not actually like there, you know, in the source material.
And like delving into more of like the fandom is that like, I know that's usually the determining factor. And when it comes to this, Rain, you did mention this is going into the Western audience. Right. So one thing that I noticed was that there's a fine balance between a concise translation where it gets to the point, and then a direct translation, which is pretty much the raw translation in that. So like, how do you polish something like kind of like the direct translation to that Western audience?
Well, I think like Alex was saying, the beauty is that there's so much musicality that's potential in these phrases. And I think that our job for the most part is to definitely take, you know, the story at face value. We can't change the story. I think that that's the most important thing. Right. But, you know, our job is to make an experience that Western people can resonate with, using experiences that are sort of cultural touchstones to the Western experience, and sort of implementing that so that it becomes a much more appealing thing for the entirety of the West. And when we say the West too, it's not just America, you know, Canada, Mexico, Europe as well. So there's a lot of things that we got to keep in mind when we're localizing these phrases.
Define cultural touchstones.
Oh man, well, especially, okay, so when you think about Hakuoki, I mean, this game has, you know, there's been so many different iterations so far, and romance as depicted in Hakuoki it's very much a Japanese game, and there are a lot of moments in this that I have to, you know, think about how will this moment come to someone who's playing it in America, you know what I mean, who has their own ideas of romance and what they expect out of these sort of scenes and stuff, and just the romanticism of it. And so I really work to make those scenes really significant. Maybe cultural touchstones was too big of a phrase, but I definitely think that there is something there to mind, because, you know, these are romance games, and these scenes will resonate with the fandom for a really long time. And so I think special attention needs to be paid to those things, so it doesn't kind of come off as dry, maybe, because Japan, especially with a lot of the text, you know, it as a language is very different, and it can sometimes become, the descriptions don't really translate well into English, just because, you know, a lot of it is descriptive and sort of repetitive. And so how do you make that more appealing and more, I guess, understandable? How do you take that in an English way?
Do you try like, so from what I can understand is like you translate it, you have like your English translation.
Right.
Do you like try testing out to your girlfriend, like, how does this sound? Does it swoon your heart?
That's a good technique.
Yes,
you should probably.
I'm not even joking. Yeah. I really am. And you know, that's a funny thing too, is because, you know, I do write poetry and I do read a lot of poetry, and that definitely informs what I think would appeal to someone who is playing this game. You know what I mean? You want to really get to their heart, because that's the whole point of the game. You're paying money to be romanced by these people. And so how can I make that experience as meaningful as I can for you? Because that's the thing that you're going to take away from it. You're not going to just take away the vampires and the action, all that stuff. You're going to take away that intimate moment that you're sharing with someone else. Wow. You know, and that is a really important thing, especially for Otome games, is creating that lasting experience, I think.
Wow.
And Rain does his due diligence with that stuff, man. He's sending me lines all the time over Skype, and I'm like getting a little hot, like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
It's like, wow, Rain, can I use this pickup line? Probably when this game publishes first, because I don't want to get fired.
Definitely.
Now, Alex, how about you and your localization process? Going back to the concise and direct translation. Going off from like the romance thing, is it more kind of like how dank can I get?
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes. I'm just kidding. No, not really. But I it's Neptunia is a completely different series than Hakuoki. You know, I think whereas Rain has to pay very careful attention to like the descriptiveness of the text and maybe more so than I do. I mean, I think we both spend time on the poetry of a line, but like even more so, I think Rain, because of the content, will have to spend ample amount of time just making sure that he's like swooning ladies really with these words. For me, my struggle is usually with like comedic timing and jokes and comedy and like that, like Neptunia stuff, like some of it just does not translate to English like very well at all. So I'm there like and I hate when I have to do it, but it's like I find myself having to like just rewrite jokes that are in there. So my intention usually is, okay, there's a joke here, it's not going to work if it's just translated like 1-to-1 from Japan to English. I need to put in something else that would kind of achieve the same mood. And more overall, like the same kind of like, content, I guess. But, if it was like a pun in Japanese that it's not going to work in English, I would just come up with another pun or, something like that. So I think a lot of my time gets spent on making sure it's funny. And so like I'll reread it and just kind of like, if I'm not, and I'll show other people in the office sometimes as well, like if it's working or not. Sometimes I get shot down, like, that's not funny, dude. Don't put that in there. It doesn't belong in Neptunia at all.
Then you go to comedy clubs just to see if this works. Open mic sessions.
Wow, that's the next step, I think.
It's part of the creative writing process. Let's do this.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. Maybe we could try to like doing that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start doing that now.
Now, give us some puns that you actually put into the game. It's already published.
I think I know one. I think I remember. I mean, it's not a pun though, but I remember a joke. Are you really crouching? Get back here, show. Sit down.
Just go.
Go, guys. So apparently, I don't. It's not technically a pun, but I remember like Neptunia. It's like I know like in Neptunia, there's like you could break the fourth wall all the time, and one of it was like, oh, I'm not gonna sit around collecting rings or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a Sonic.
Don't bring up Sonic in this show.
Oh wow. Well,
don't ever bring that shit.
What game was that on? Was that on
the first game? I remember.
Okay, that wasn't me.
I remember it because playing through that one part, that's the only game I ever played. I was like, oh yeah, there's a Sonic reference in here. It's like great.
So I think that was like the previous editor, but I think that kind of just goes into like what I'm talking about. It's like you need to bring that into this title. Like the series just like begs for moments like that to happen, especially because there's so many references to games. You know, it's like there's already like there's just so many puns. I mean, as far as stuff that I've done, oh man, it's kind of a lot. There was the one that just pops into my head immediately that like I spent so much amount, like a stupid amount of time trying to figure out. I think it was in V2. There's a main character named R4.
Yeah.
And she's an older character in the game. And all the goddesses kind of make fun of her for being like older. And so there's this one scene where Neptune is like essentially just calling her like old and dried up and like she won't be able to get a date ever. And well, actually, man, it's not really like a PG joke now that I'm thinking about it. The pun is R Fjord, and I'll just Google it. I don't know.
I could just feel the salt just coming in.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's a handful. There's a handful.
Yeah. Like, give us a PG joke if you can think of one.
I have to think.
There's just so much text in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we get attached to lines for sure, but I mean, it's an entire game.
Right.
So it's just there's so much to think about there. I mean, even with Hakuoki, I mean, there's like lines there that resonate in particular with the characters. You know, a lot of the fandoms like, man, they live and die by these lines, and so those are the things you have to think about and just think consciously haven't spent a lot of time on because you know these are impressions. I mean, you look at Neptunia, people screenshot that thing to death.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so that's something that you're going to have to think about too. Is okay, someone's going to screenshot this, and this will pretty much be on the internet for posterity.
Yeah,
which I think about when I'm like sometimes writing these lines. Okay, like this is going to be a gem for somebody. Someone's going to come across this in the game, and they're going to get super stoked.
Yeah.
They're going to be so happy. They're going to screenshot it and they're going to post it on NepGen and use it as a perfect reaction image to somebody, and it's going to be beautiful. And I contributed to that, so you're welcome.
Have you seen people actually post it on the social media like, oh my gosh, look at this line?
Oh yeah, it does happen. And I get pretty excited when it does, you know. And sometimes people hate them.
Oh my!
And it's also kind of funny and exciting, and I feel a little sad sometimes, but mostly it's just pretty funny.
Oh, nice. Do you just like keep a folder in there? It's like, I did this. I did this.
I definitely do. Definitely do.
Put it on like your resume and stuff. Like, look at what I did right now. Yeah. My writing's this awesome. It could be this dank. Could do for your show. Oh my gosh. So now I actually want to go into like getting into kind of like the video game industry. So what do you suggest to people to do to get into it?
Wow, to get into it?
Yeah.
I feel like it was such a fluke for us because, like I said, I applied and I didn't get the job, and I was like an afterthought. And then Rain is working here because I'm working here.
Right.
So I don't know. Somehow we kind of just like left out.
It was just like by chance this happened.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, we were prepared for the opportunity. You know, we both were already, you know, graduates from here with a degree in creative writing, and I think we've both spent time with games, you know. So I don't know. I mean, preparation is probably really good.
Right.
Go to school for something you like that's game related.
Yeah.
I definitely think so. I think being part of the community, which is so large, you know, like 10, even 20 years ago, I remember my parents were telling me, you know, what are you going to do with video games? I was just playing video games all the time, playing Pokemon. But now, you know, it's a giant industry. And so I think that the cool thing about the video game industry now is there's so many opportunities for people to carve like their own space online or in conventions and stuff. And I think being in tune with those communities and constantly being involved and going to those kinds of events will definitely kind of get you in there because the industry is huge, you know, and there's a lot of things to do from streaming, from marketing to obviously what we do, localization. And so I think that if you're passionate about it, it's definitely something that could happen, especially, you know, we're here in Long Beach or in Los Angeles, you know, I think that Long Beach or California in particular is kind of a hotbed for all of those different kinds of industries. So.
Question for all of you, like in regards to just like the video game industry and careers, what is the highest demand? Like what do people look for?
Maybe David already have this.
Yeah. Now we have questions for both of you.
I was gonna say like QA testers are always in demand.
Yeah,
I
mean,
like
pretty much everyone in this room right now, we all got our start doing QA.
Yeah.
So I started out doing QA. Ari started out doing QA, and so I don't know if we're representative of how most people get into the industry.
But this is how we did it.
Yeah, I feel like we all kind of lucked into it and fell into the careers that we're in right now.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a particular strategy in trying to get into the industry. I always thought it would be really cool to work in video games, but I studied English in college, and I kind of just used that to kind of get into QA, and then use that to write stuff for PR stuff. But I mean, I just feel like I got lucky by ending up
absolutely
here.
Right. And how about you?
For me, so I actually also studied creative writing in college, but I had a minor in game development.
Oh, wow. Whoa. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Back up.
So
we are dealing with greatness, people.
So I totally, I knew 3 programming languages, and I was always going to video game clubs and video game hangouts at like UCI or USC. So I was just like trying to do my best to always be like at these community events, and I was constantly going to conventions and trying to meet industry people. And I just remember there was a time in my life where I was like applying all the time to any of the game industry jobs around here constantly. And then I finally heard back for a QA position, and that's basically how it was. So I spent like 2 years in college doing a video game job while being in college, and there was just honestly just graduate. I think is the most important thing. Like have those skills, like Ray and Alex were talking about, and just be prepared and always be active in that community.
Got you.
But also like how I got from QA into full time, it's luck. You know, like a position opened up. They liked me enough to be like, hey, we might want you to be full time now. Yeah. So
and
that's cool.
When you mentioned about just like people like you and stuff, what do you think what do you think people saw in you that's just like, I want you? Like, what was that special thing?
What question?
Honestly, social skills, I think, because we ended up in marketing. So for us, it was like, hey, you can talk to people and you like video games and we don't hate working with you. Like, you know, like you're a team player, you're good at communication.
Be a nice person.
Be a good person to other people,
I feel like that's really important.
Yeah.
Maybe overlooked. I mean, even if someone's super talented, I mean, they have to be like part of a team.
Exactly.
You know, like we work so closely together. They're in marketing, but we're still like talking all the time about like the titles that we work on. I just think it's like so critical that you have people skills on top of everything else.
It's such a collaborative industry and like line of work.
Yeah.
Like I know in college, I'm a college student right now. Right. As of this recording, I know group projects are like the bane of all existence.
Oh, I hated them in college, for sure.
So, like, do you encourage other people to just work in a group, just like so that way you could get it early on and not be a jerk?
I mean, for me, all of college, that's all I did because I was in game development.
Right.
Oh, wow.
But. Yes.
So maybe if you're not working in group settings right now, maybe think about just trying to do that a little more and just get used to that collaborative environment. I mean, I feel like you guys are working in a team here. This is great. Like, this is perfect.
Oh, thank you.
It's good to see that on a resume. You know that you can work with people and then show that to people.
Yeah. Through my totalitarian dictatorship like leadership, it's going to be great.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, I think we're working together.
Don't worry. This show is still happening. Then it means it's working.
It's working. This entire show is based off of hate.
And salt. I just want to let you know. Oh my gosh.
There's also, I think, like an attention to detail. I think probing deadlines. Deadlines are probably the most important thing in the game industry, you know, because these games have to release on time and the fans are expecting it to release at a certain time. And so being in that kind of communication and making sure that you're responsible and that you're diligent and that you're reliable, I think, are some of the most important things that you need to keep in mind when you enter this industry.
Yeah, it's huge. It's so huge.
So, like, how do you kind of approach people and say, look, we have a deadline right now, and not come out as a butt?
Honestly, the easiest way is just say it, man.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, in the working world, it's just like, hey, you know, this needs to get done in this time, and you would hopefully trust that person to take that message and, you know, create the results that you need in the time frame they give.
Bite the bullet.
Yeah, that's pretty much 100% my job is to make people do things. So, just being direct and just saying that this needs to get done. And everyone understands. Like, we're all in this together to make a project happen.
Yeah.
So everyone understands or comes into this with the understanding that we're doing this because we need to get something out at a certain time. And if we're all not doing our part in order to make that happen, then everything's going to fall apart. So I think within the industry and just like any collaborative effort, like as long as everyone is on the same page in what we're trying to accomplish, then there's an understanding there. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you set a deadline and don't tell anybody and then
that's
tell
another
them before that you expect them to get it done at the last minute, then that's another issue. But yeah, as long as there's open communication, and that falls into the whole idea of being able to speak with other people and work with other people, that like just keeping those open lines of communication for anything is gonna be able to get you very far.
Yeah.
Nice. So it's basically just having that open communication or communication skills to really just work within that team.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that goes into making a game. You know, it's not just a book where you write this, you write the text and then, you know, it gets published. I mean, there's programmers that we also have to communicate with in Japan. There's, you know, we're writing the story here, and then the marketing team will be able to basically bring it to the people and give them what they want. And so I think that you know, it's something you have to keep in mind is that your part is just one part of the entire game.
An entire line of communication, like from starting in Japan to here, to us marketing it, being selling it. You know.
Yeah. And like I could see like the whole group vibe is just like, yeah, we're best buddies, even though we're kind of like, I want to choke you at some points.
Maybe
That
just
always
marketing.
happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we'll still get drinks at the end of the day too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Oh, so quick question for the for like all of you guys. So because you guys have mentioned that you have to communicate back and forth from Japan, has there ever been a time where you guys actually have to go down to like the Japanese offices and kind of discuss with the party team, or is it all done?
We usually we have people that
someone who does that,
communicate specifically with Japan. So our producer goes to Japan a lot. Localization emails with Japan, like the translators email with Japan. So we have like usually it's the higher ups that go over to Japan and go to the headquarters.
But sometimes Japan comes to us
Yeah.
and we get to hang out and have fun times with them. But like essentially it's creating that relationship, you know, again, establishing lines of communication beyond just work, but also like having that good relationship with the people that you work with. So
The really cool thing, like when they do come from Japan too, is that they usually bring snacks,
Oh my god.
snacks and
Oh
snacks.
man.
That's a whole
Yes.
affair.
which is really important.
Tokyo banana.
Tokyo banana.
Tokyo banana.
Tokyo banana.
That's our
Tokyo banana. So usually when
start
someone brings it
dancing.
in, like I start singing that in the office. I just start singing it when someone brings in Tokyo banana, and it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
harmonizing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good time.
Yeah. Then Beyonce shows up sometimes.
Beyonce. What?
Talk about
Beyonce in the form of David Alonso.
Man, I only get Jay-Z. This sucks.
No, we get that rapper down the street.
Well, you're talking about yourself, right?
Oh, shut
That's why I hired you.
In-house rapper. It's perfect.
Salt. Love you, man. Anyways, we'll get more into localization right after the break.
This is Carnage Kabuto from One Punch Man. If you're not listening to Otaku Hourly, I will end you. Punch you in the face.
I'm your show host, Jonathan Joestar Beltran, and yes, more riffs. I'm here today with my crew members.
Jon No Jons, shout out to Eddie.
Yeah, our boy Marth over here at Facebook Live. Yeah, show your pretty face. And then we have our esteemed guest from Idea Factory,
David.
Alex.
Ari.
And I'm Rain.
Yes. So we're getting into the final, like the finality of this whole radio show. So I want to kind of end it off with story time.
Oh man.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Give us an industry horror story. Who wants to start?
How about the whole I wore boots to AX thing?
Oh man.
Oh, tell us. Why?
So I've always wanted to go to AX, but my first time going was last year when we worked at AX 2016.
Yeah.
And everyone had told me, dude, you have to bring comfortable shoes. And so, of course, I didn't listen, and I wore boots. And I have to tell you, I was standing there for hours, and it was
4 days, 8 hours at a time.
4 days, yeah. And fans would come up to me and talk to me, and I was smiling, but in my mind, I was just crying. I literally, every time I went back to our hotel, I would just soak my feet in like the coldest water possible. It was pretty much crazy. So next year, I'm wearing like Crocs or something, man.
Get the Air Jordans though.
Yeah, for real.
I'm gonna sacrifice style for some ugly shoes and comfortableness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh! Wow. I guess slick doesn't work for AX.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, at least you don't have to hide your cowlick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I had my handy top nip.
How about you, David? What's an industry horror story?
Industry horror stories.
I was just trying to think of one. I
Yeah.
feel like all of marketing is an industry horror story.
It is.
Like, because there's so much traveling and like setup and like interviewing and meeting people all the time. To, like,
Yeah, there's a lot of running around
Yeah.
and just I think most of it, like what becomes most memorable is just working at conventions.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
at conventions you meet all kinds of interesting people. I just remember one time a guy came by our booth. We were working at Anime Impulse, I think.
This is such a good story. This is
This
a good
guy
story.
came by our booth and like, you know, we're working with money every day. Our hands are getting dirty. So we had like a gallon of hand sanitizer.
It was just out on the
it
table,
was just
on the top.
out there on the
Yeah.
table. And this guy came by our booth and he just walked right up to it and he brought out his like little portable bottle of hand sanitizer and started pumping away.
He's pumping
and filling it up.
Yeah.
And he just was telling one of my coworkers how much he loved cats the whole time that he was doing it. And then he filled it up, walked away, and then later on that day he came by our neighbor's booth. She was doing face painting and stuff. She also had a gallon of hand sanitizer. And he proceeded to do the same thing over there. Like, I mean, you can't go through that much hand sanitizer in the manner of like 3 hours.
It was like 3
or
hours,
something.
yeah.
But
So he came back.
So we had to end up hiding our hand sanitizer for the rest of the convention.
Oh my god,
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, hand sanitizer guy. Yeah,
That's a good story.
That's a good one.
That's a really good story. Now 2 left.
Oh my god, I can't even think of one right now.
There aren't a lot of horror stories. We just meet lots of interesting
It's just like interesting people or just like us making mistakes, like not bringing the right shoes. more than an actual like horror story happening. I feel like.
It's mostly just us forgetting things.
Yeah.
That's usually our nightmare.
Yeah.
Because we show up to these events and
Oh,
we're like,
man.
oh god, we don't
Actually,
have
I do have
cables for
one.
these monitors and we're supposed to demo these
exactly.
games. Oh god. And
Yeah.
we're just like stressed out for like the rest of the night. I don't know.
That was one. Actually, I was just gonna tell that one. We're like, we didn't have like a monitor or cable for a monitor, so we had to buy a new monitor. And like David and I are like the middle of downtown San Francisco because we're supposed to have like we're doing PlayStation Experience setup, so we need a monitor for our booth, and we just had to like peace out from the rest of the booth setup. Go to the Target downtown. We buy this like flat screen TV. We're out on the street holding this box, and David and I are like, okay, it's like a 10-minute walk to Moscone Center. We can just like carry this. And we look at each other, and there's like just homeless people on the street. And we're just like, no, we're gonna Uber there. But it's just like that's marketing mainly. It's just like, oh, we had to do the last minute buying, and oh, we forgot this. So
yeah, I feel like marketing usually has the juicier stories. Rain and I just have to deal with emails and forums, I guess. I don't know, and text. That's usually our
pretty much
story.
Oh wow. So it's just marketing, they're suffering.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
always.
It's part of the job.
Yeah. It's like you're signing up for this. Just want to let you all know.
Yeah, suffering right now, actually.
Well, actually, at conventions, like Rain's whole boot story, like when I first started doing conventions and working at them, I was very much of the mentality of suffer for fashion. So I wore boots and I wore jeans and I would wear like things like I want to just get dressed up a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to look good for this. And now I'm just like wearing shorts and like sneakers and not caring anymore because I'd rather be comfortable for like 9 hours in a day than have to suffer for it to look good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. Like I'm a cosplayer, so like I'm used to suffering while wearing clothing. That's normally how things go.
Yeah.
So I was like at conventions I would wear platforms and boots and just be on my legs for like 8 hours a day. But now that I'm like working a booth, I'm like, F that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna wear sandals. It's fine. I can't say that word. Yeah.
Moral of the story, polish your talents and wear comfy things.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm your show host, Jonathan Joestar Beltran. My crew members,
Jon No Jons.
Marth on the camera right now, and our esteemed guest from Idea Factory,
David Joestar. Alonso. I don't know.
It's just me, Alex.
Ari.
And I'm Rain.
Peace out.